My life is in your hands. My life is in your hands. You took control when I was young, when I was not able. My life is in your hands. My life is in your hands. You took control when I was young, when I was not able.
Welcome to Inspired Blessings with Jean Marie Prince. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Today, my guest is Kathy Haack. Childhood like? You good family? What was the scenario?
Well, yes, I had a very good family. I'm one of 5 children.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were wonderful parents. Um, I was brought up as a Catholic, as a lot of people have been, and um, there was nothing terrible in my life as a child, really. It was a very nice childhood.
Well, you believe in God because you were told to believe, or did you have a faith at a young age, or how did it come about for you to truly understand who Jesus Christ really was to you?
Well, I believe that I did have faith when I was younger. My parents, even though I was brought up Catholic, my I wasn't brought up as a very strict Catholic. I did receive communion and confirmation, but I was allowed to go to other churches. If I wanted to go to one of my friends' churches, my parents were fine with that. They told me that as long as I believe in Jesus, that it didn't matter which church I went to.
Mm-hmm. And so, at what age was this?
I was around 7.
Okay,
I was
7.
around 7 when, yeah, because I met her in my school. I went to public school. I met her at school, and she invited me to go to her church with her.
Um, so at the age of 7, when you're starting to hear what they're telling you, what are you thinking?
Well, when I was in my Catholic church, I did not know during the service what they were saying because it was all in Latin, but I did go to what's called catechism. And in catechism, looking back, I feel that I didn't learn that much about Jesus or about anything. I had to memorize things like prayers and the Ten Commandments. And so I believed in the Ten Commandments. I thought they
Mhm.
were important. I learned my prayers. I didn't learn very much about the Bible, except for maybe stories about Jesus when he was born and when he died.
But when did you come to faith then?
Well, so I feel like it was instilled in me. I feel that my parents instilled it in me to believe in Jesus, and I took it seriously as a child. But then, but I continued to be a Catholic even as I got a little older. My mother died when I was in college, so when she died, um, that was a hard time for me. But
Mm.
I remember going to the funeral and being a little upset over just going there. But when I walked into the funeral home, I felt a total peace come over me, and I knew that it wasn't just the normal peace. I knew that was God giving me this peace.
Right, right, right. Um, so then, let's say you're in college, right? Did you go to college? You said,
Yes.
right? Okay. And so, how was it in college for you? Were you living in the world, or how
I
was it?
I was probably more so living in the world. I was busy doing my studies and things like that. I wasn't busy studying the Bible or anything like that. Although I will say that my parents, I asked them about the Bible because we didn't have one in the Catholic religion. But my parents had a Bible and they told me I could read it, and I did. As a teenager, I read the Bible.
Hmm.
So I knew some of the stories as I got older.
Right, right. Yeah, I believe that the Catholic Church has the Bible, but it's just that they tend to add things that
Oh
probably
yeah,
should.
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the thing is that when I'm saying, were you living um, of the world, meaning were you partying? Were you, doing things that maybe wouldn't be, pleasing to God?
Well, I'm not saying that I was like this party person like you see on TV with these college kids. I mean, I went to college
Right.
a long time ago. Yeah, I went to the parties and I studied marine biology, so a lot of the
Mm.
students I worked with were divers, and so we would have like clam chowder parties and things like that.
Wow, you're smart. Marine biologist, you have to be really smart. Um, so I guess even being a marine biologist, were you realizing the fact that they had to be an intelligent designer, for, in what you were seeing?
Well, yeah, I never really believed in evolution. It never really made sense to me. As a person who studied science, that didn't really make sense to me.
Right, right.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I did believe I was a creationist from, way back.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, I just think common sense kind of tells you, if you were to, you know, just throw something up in the air and expect it to come all together, in a design, that's
Right,
ridiculous. You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right.
But
Yeah,
everything, from my glasses, I tell this when I'm doing speaking events, to even my lipstick, you know what I'm saying? Somebody had to create it. So who would have the wisdom, and the power to be able to create cells that make us up, and our largest organ is our skin. And so when you hear about the just making of a cell that dies every 3 to 6 months, you know, it's just amazing how people can think that it just became an amoeba of swimming to the shore, became a freckle, and somehow we became a human being. I mean, I don't know.
exactly,
Doesn't make
exactly.
sense. But I
And
want to.
when you're in college and things like that, everybody wants to debate those kinds of issues. It's just what we do, right? We're studying, and that's what we do.
Right. Well, I mean, they do say, how do I say this? Book smart people sometimes don't have common sense. And like I said, when I recently did a speaking event, I'm like, I'm thankful that I'm not book smart.
Oh, no.
But anyway, so let's go on in the fact that now you got married, and how did that go? And because I want to make sure that we get to the important testimony of what you went through in your life, and how whether did God help you overcome it, or did you fail? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you can start with you got married at when?
I got married, well, what year was it? It was in the 70s, 78, I think.
Okay.
I got married. We got married in a Catholic church um, in Connecticut. We got married in Connecticut because at that point my family had moved up to Connecticut, and we remained Catholic for a short while. But then I had my daughter, and I didn't really like the Catholic Church. I hadn't liked it for a long time, but I felt like I needed something, so I continued with the Catholic religion. But after she was born, both of us became Congregationalists. So we went to a church in Bayshore, the Congregational Church in Bayshore, which was better, maybe not the best, but it was better. I could study the Bible. There were Bible stories. There was Sunday school for my kids. I thought it was much better.
So you had two children, if I recall, right?
Yes.
If you could kind of just share a little bit about each of them, because yeah.
Well, my daughter Allison was born first, and she was a good kid. And when she became a teenager, there were teenage problems, and but she did okay. She was a very good student, um, and she went to college, and she was a good student there. But she was a student, she wasn't a solid Christian. But thankfully, she met a girl in college who was studying theology. That was her major.
Hmm.
And so she kind of taught Allison a lot about the Bible and about being a Christian, which I was really very thankful for.
That's great. So now tell me about your son.
My son, he was my son was unique. He loved people. He really loved people. He loved to be out and about, and And if he was smart also. He was very smart. If he wanted to do really well, for his algebra regents, he got a 99 on his algebra regents because he wanted to, he just wanted to. He wanted to try to beat his friend who got a 99 also. But he was trying for 100 to beat his friend. And that's why he did well. But if he didn't want to do well, he didn't do well. He just, he didn't care. He was just like, he was like his free spirit, and you couldn't rein him in, even if you wanted to. So when he went to college, we had trouble during his 12th year because he had a girlfriend and he broke up with her and things weren't going well. But I thought they straightened out and he went to college, but they didn't really completely straighten out. So he ended up leaving college and coming home. We were pretty okay with that because we figured that maybe he still wasn't healed and we could help him.
Right.
So to continue that story, my father-in-law was very ill. He had dementia, and he was living with us for a little while, but then we couldn't really keep him in our house because it became a little dangerous because he wanted to use the stove all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to put him in a home, and then we had to clean out his house, and he lived in North Carolina. So we all went down to North Carolina to clean out his house and take care of things. And we couldn't get it all done in the amount of time we were there. So my son Christopher stayed there, and it took him about 2 weeks. And the last day before he was supposed to come home, like I said, he loved people. So he befriended people already in 2 weeks while we were gone. He made friends. He had a party in my father-in-law's house, and there was drinking, and he got in a car with a friend who was driving, and they crashed into a tree, and they both died instantly at only a few blocks from the house where my father-in-law lived.
Yeah, I'm sorry sorry to hear that. How old was he when he passed away?
He was 19 years old.
And you were how old yourself?
I guess I was almost 50.
Okay. And how did you hear of the news?
The police from North Carolina called us in the middle of the night. The car went on fire. It was a big fire. So I don't know how long it took them to finally find us because we were in New York and he was in North Carolina. But they called us in the middle of the night, and that's how we found out. We thought that they were talking about my father-in-law, but they kept correcting us. No, it's your son, Christopher. And so.
Yeah, because nobody would really comprehend or think the fact that your child would die before the parent. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that probably maybe that thought, and so total shock and amazement. And what were you thinking? Because I know some people that probably would have blamed God right there and then.
Well, they say that there are people that blame God. They say that there's how many steps to healing and grieving. But I never blame God. We never blame God. We had to get to North Carolina. So we flew down. I was praying in the plane because it was my daughter, my husband, and myself. I was praying that it would just crash and then that we would all be together and that would be the end of it. But God didn't see that. He didn't agree with me.
He wanted those other people on the plane to live.
I know. I wasn't even thinking about them. I mean,
That's okay. That's all right. That's okay. The mind was elsewhere at that time. We understand.
Yeah. I was just wanting the three of us to crash. Yes, and then when we got to North Carolina, we had to drive to the hospital, and I was still praying that it was a mistake.
Sure.
I still believe that maybe it was a mistake. I even prayed that God could bring him back to life because God can do that, right?
He can.
So I prayed for that as well, but we went through the funeral, and that's the way it was. My son died when he was 19 years old.
Right, right, right. So the funeral had to be packed with a lot of his friends, young friends.
The funeral, well, he had a lot of friends, as I told you. So,
Hmm.
yeah, the funeral home was packed. It was packed. I mean, I don't remember a lot of the details during that time, but I do remember it was very crowded.
Yeah, I know people say, when they're going through something like that, it's almost like an out of body experience, you know,
Yeah.
because it's a whole shock of the thing. When did it actually, when did you actually come to terms that this really did happen? Because you're so busy with the funeral, you're so busy with people coming in and going out. When did it actually, sink in?
Well, I because there was a big fire, there was, we buried him as a regular traditional burial, but I never got to see Christopher. I
Mm,
don't know. It was a closed casket and I never got to see him. So it was
mm,
I think because of that, it was a long time for me to accept the fact that he was really gone.
right,
It took me about a year really to accept the fact that he was really, really, he really died.
right, right, right. Um, and so, what were you praying during those times?
Sometimes I prayed it was still a mistake and I would see him.
That you
Uh,
probably was in a dream, right? That this was just a very bad dream, that you'd wake up.
well, I didn't think it was a dream, but because I didn't see him,
Mm,
I was hopeful that it was a mistake.
mhm.
I kept hoping that there was still a mistake.
Sure.
Um, yeah, but my husband and I we stuck together, and because it was a an accident and that involved alcohol,
Mm,
my husband thought that it was important to bring purpose to Christopher's life. So we decided to try to get an ignition interlock device for cars so that people, if they touched the steering wheel and they had a certain level of alcohol in their blood, the the car would not start. And that is it's
that's a
very
great
good.
idea. You mean to say that the alcohol would be felt through your palm of your hands? That when you
Yes,
touch
and which is very, very
common,
readily
and now that's
doable.
a common sense product. Like, why
Yes,
would we have that?
yes. But we got a lot of people fighting back on that, especially the beverage industry. They have lobbyists in Albany and they fought against that.
Mm.
Um,
It's
and so
money.
we had what?
It's money. Money. Everything is money. You know what I'm saying?
Everything's money. So we had an assemblyman, Felix Ortez, that wrote up the bill for us. And he had us come to Albany and speak about it. And we had a lot of presentation with the news.
Mhm.
Um, they were all big cameras all around us and asking us questions. And we had a good presence on the internet. My husband put together a very nice internet site for us.
Well, what is it? Can you want to share it so this way, if anybody's watching this and want to get involved, because they might have had their family member, killed because of a drunk
Well,
driver.
if they would like to contact me, I still have the plans for the steering wheel. Um, the internet site even is not up and running
Mhm.
presently. My
Okay.
son died in 2000 in 2002. So,
So how would they contact you?
um, well, you could give them my email, or you
Well,
could.
can you say it? Can you
Huh?
say it? Can
Yeah,
you?
sure. My email is Hackster, HAACKKSTER @gmail.com.
So if anybody's interested in learning more about the bill that she's trying to get passed, and maybe even want help her to be able to try to get it passed, because you can even mention it to your congressman or legislative to see if they would pass this bill. Because to me, this is like a common sense bill. Because you know what? Sometimes we can go out, even with friends, and not have evil intentions of getting drunk. But you don't realize sometimes maybe that second glass of wine or beer, maybe we shouldn't have had. And so at least that would even be something that would help to even, check to see if you should, that if I should be driving, if you should be driving. Because
Exactly.
that's the last thing we would ever want to do is to take somebody else's life, let alone ours.
Right.
So, yeah. So that really makes sense for people to be able to look into that, and give that email again one more time that they can reach
Sure.
out to you.
It's hackster@gmail.com. So it's HAACKKSTER@gmail.com.
Yeah, because like I said, innocently you go out with your friends, family. You don't think the fact that, oh, two glasses of wine wouldn't affect me, but you never know. And you know
Right.
what? I would like to know that if I got into a car and I touched the steering wheel, then it's like telling me that I'm over the limit, that I wouldn't want to take the risk of destroying my family, my life, along with others, So,
Exactly.
so yeah, so it really does make sense.
Yeah.
Now, I want to read this, if you don't mind. It's that God had blessed me after Columbine High School, because the whole idea is that all of a sudden your child is there one day and the next thing they're gone, right? So God had blessed me to write throughout the events of history, and this happened to be after Columbine High School. One called "Let Us Seek the Truth," and this other one is "Our Child Would Never Be Forgotten." It used to be sold in stores, 8 by 10. Um, so I think you might be able to kind of, you know, agree with this. Our child will never be forgotten. Our child laughed and played, enjoying God's beautiful world through the eyes of youth, with the wind blowing in and around their hair, giving hugs and kisses to us in their special way. Then our lives just froze at that moment, realizing it was a memory of the past, of how our lives used to be before our child was taken up to heaven. We will always miss you, our beautiful child, and we will never forget the memories we made. We will put a smile on our faces in memory of you and reflect the love we have shared. We know you are with God our Father in heaven now, his loving arms holding you with his love. And that is how we find comfort in our hearts, knowing that he is watching over you until we embrace one another in heaven. You know? So the thing is that at least we know in the fact that, our child, if they put their faith in Christ, we know where they will be, and that one day you will be reunited with
Yeah.
them. So that must give you hope to know that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so so do you share your testimony, I guess, individually to individuals, right? Or do you feel right now God is calling you maybe to share it further?
I have shared it with other people. Yes, I have. What do you mean by share it further?
Sharing it further, maybe now you're doing this TV show. Do you think maybe you might want to do speaking events at churches or different events, to be able to share your testimony
Oh,
of how God had taken you through a massive trial that no parent should ever have to go through, and how you got through it with his help.
yeah. Well, I haven't thought about doing speaking engagements lately. I haven't really. My husband passed away 6 years ago, so that was another trial in my life, and so I haven't really thought about doing other engagements.
Well, you're standing strong today, right? You realize that how God has helped you through this. It's not because you didn't walk away from your faith; you became stronger in your faith. Correct?
Absolutely, and I would love to see that ignition interlock device in place. There's been so many years that have gone by that they've put so many things in cars.
Well, maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the next step, and maybe this will be a good help. For people to actually hear that there is an actual product that would be able to do that. Just to me, that's common sense. And you hate to think in this world, it's about money. It's about not lives that might be destroyed, but it's about these corporations, the money that they may lose, because now people will be like realizing, oh, I did drink too much. My body really can take hypothetically 3 or 4 glasses of wine. It can only take 2 or 1. You know what I'm saying? So now there'd be less things for them to drink. But so it's just very selfish of these corporations, and not to think of other people's lives rather than the bottom dollar for the corporations and the stockholders.
Right. Yes.
So, so maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe that's your platform to get that more out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and also because of the fact that I kind of title this is the fact that you know, how your faith, you know, was tested, and does it fail or does it stand stronger? And so this is you know, a card that God had blessed me to do, and it's called Faith Being Tested. So I thought this would be appropriate again for our interview, you know, because I always like to relate it back to how God can help us. So it's faith being tested. When a trial comes into your life as an unexpected guest, do you really believe and the faith? Hold on. Do you really have the faith to believe and to endure the test? Your faith will be tested in ways that seem unimaginable. At times, it is even harder to comprehend the meaning of it. Your mind is confused, trying to analyze everything that is unknown, wondering if you can stop the test, realizing that your faith is weak. You are not expected to do it all by yourself. Don't let pride make you fail. God allows trials to happen in your life to see if you're willing to grow. His timing may not be on your calendar, but it was on His before you were born. He is waiting for you to call out His name so you can receive His power, and He will strengthen you in your trial with His love and grace. Then you will see miracles in your life that seem impossible for man. Your faith is tested to see if you have the conviction to believe. Faith is invisible to the eyes, and it is not always easy to have. But with God's power, it becomes real for all who know that God can make all things possible. He knows what our hearts desire, and there is nothing that is kept secret from Him because we are His children. Take the time to see the greater purpose of your trial by being patient and waiting upon the Lord for the blessings that He will give you, because you really did have the faith to believe. You know, so sometimes, you know, trials come in our lives, and in here I have Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And so the thing is that you know, nobody's ever saying, hey, yeah, I want to be tested. No, but it just happens because we live in a fallen world.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, we're running out of time, but
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for sharing, and I hope maybe you would really start a platform and trying to get this other thing that you want to get out there.
Thank
So,
you.
no problem. So if you're interested in a guest speaker, I'd love to share my testimony from my book and sing some songs in between. And keep inspired blessings within arm's reach to help give you comfort when others are at a loss for words. Thank you, and God bless. To accept and receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, please say this prayer. I know that I am a sinner who needs forgiveness. Jesus, please forgive me for all my sins and purify me. I know that you died and rose again to pay for my sins. I need you to be my Lord and Savior for the rest of my life. Thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen. For more information about Jean Marie Prince and Inspired with and Grace Casey is actually my #1 customer, and I happen to you know, to drop it off to her because you have ordered so many cards from me. And she just kept on saying how she loved. I'm like, and I said to her, you know, I would love to get you guys commercials.
Well, I said, I'll gladly spread the word, because honestly, you cannot believe how inspirational these cards are. I cannot tell you how much it says God has blessed Jean Marie with a gift that you cannot believe, because these words say what anybody would have in their heart to tell somebody how much God has played a role in putting them together and in putting everything in the real perspective of life.
I have to give God all the glory because I told you my previous experience is none.
Right.
Okay. I had mentioned to you that in the book that God had blessed me to write, and in which 3 personal relationships were mended.
Wow.
One was between a mother and her daughter, where they weren't talking for 8 or 11 years.
Right.
And that relationship was mended because of the writing, and because the mother had bought a bunch of cards and sent it to her, and then her daughter had contacted her, and now she was part of this, going to the wedding and everything, and you know, and then the daughter was even so much touched by it, and she was a lawyer, that she would take the writings and
Wow.
to other manufacturers and put it on their products, and wanted to do that with my
Right.
writing. But that was so new to me at that time,
Wow.
and I just didn't want my words to be